Hi, my name is Brian and I'm 31 years old. I was born and brought up in the small town of Houghton, Michigan, which you can find just north of Keweenaw Waterway. Well, when I was just a kid, around 11 years old, my whole world got flipped upside down thanks to my parents' divorce. My dad, Paul, and my mom, Evelyn, called it quits one day and my life was never the same. To be honest, I could sense it from a mile away. My mom and dad were like two puzzle pieces that just did not click together. Mom was all about organization and always planned ahead, while dad was more of a go with the flow and live in the moment kind of person. She liked things neat and tidy, and he didn't mind a little chaos. They clashed over everything, from how to load the dishwasher to what color to paint the living room, etc., etc. But it was deeper than just surface-level things. Their values were totally different too. Mom believed in hard work and sacrifice, while dad was all about living it up and taking risks. He was always chasing his dreams, even if it meant being away from us for weeks at a time. Mom respected his ambition, but she felt like he was not holding up his end of the bargain as a husband and dad. And let me tell you, every little thing turned into a full-blown argument in our house. They were both stubborn as mules and just could not seem to see eye to eye. In the end, I guess they both figured out they were better off going their separate ways. It was not an easy call, and it sure as heck was not pain-free, but it was needed for their own peace of mind. And even though it tore my family apart, looking back, I can see it was probably for the best. I had always been pretty mature for my age, but when my parents split up, I was a wreck. It hurt like hell trying to make sense of everything. But as time went on, I started noticing that mom seemed happier, and dad also seemed to be thriving without the weight of mom holding him back, and so after a while, their split started to make sense to me. It had been a year or two since my parents' divorce when my mother told me that she had someone in her life and she really liked and appreciated the man and wanted me to meet him. And so I met Andrew. "Hey kiddo, can I talk to you for a minute?" "Yeah, Mom, of course." "I know things have been tough lately, but I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what." "Yes, Mom, I know you are always here with me." "I also want you to know that it is okay to move on and to find happiness in unexpected places." I didn't quite understand where she was heading, and that's when she introduced Andrew. "Brian, sweetheart, I would like you to meet someone. This is Andrew." As we sat down together, my mom began to explain. She talked about how she had met Andrew through a mutual friend, how they had clicked instantly, and how he had come to mean a great deal to her. I listened closely and tried to keep an open mind despite my reservations. At first, meeting Andrew was like stepping into uncharted territory. I was skeptical, but as we hung out more, I actually started to like him. He was a real big shot in the tech world. I didn't know it then because I was too young to even make sense of it. I just knew that he owned a booming tech company, which was based in the heart of Chicago, Illinois. Then, as I grew up, I came to know that it was a cutting-edge software development firm that specialized in artificial intelligence and machine learning, and they were the brains behind some of the coolest tech innovations out there. Andrew had this easygoing vibe that put me at ease right away. He was not trying to be someone he was not, and there was no pretense about him. He was into all the stuff I liked, like sports, music, and even video games. And he didn't treat me like a kid. He listened when I talked, respected my opinions, and even gave me some pretty solid advice from time to time. But beyond all that, he was very different from Dad. He was very calm and composed and never argued with my mom on petty things, and it was pretty clear from his actions how much he cared about Evelyn. The way he looked at her, the little things he did to make her smile. It was obvious he was head over heels for her, and seeing her happy meant the world to me. But what I admired most about Andrew was his humility. Despite being at the top of his game, he never let it go to his head. He was always down to earth and was always willing to lend a helping hand to those in need. I had met Andrew a couple of times and I knew that Andrew was divorced, but I had no idea he had a son too. And then one day my mom just casually dropped this bomb on me. "Hey Brian, guess what? Andrew has a son named Michael, and he is just 2 years younger than you." I was kind of shocked hearing it because this was brand new information. "Andrew has a son. But you never told me anything about him?" "Oh, it must have just slipped my mind, honey." "Oh, okay. What do you say we invite him over for dinner this Saturday?" "I'm cool." "Perfect then. I will tell Andrew to come with Michael." I was so shocked when I heard that Andrew had a son, and that he was practically my age. It was like my whole world got flipped upside down in an instant. I tried to play it cool, but inside I was freaking out. And meeting my mom's boyfriend was one thing, but now I had to meet his kid too. I was so nervous, like, what if Michael did not like me? And what if we had nothing in common? What if he thought I was some weirdo intruding on his dad's life? But as crazy as it sounds, I was kind of excited to meet him. It was going to be a little weird at first, but I thought that maybe Michael and I would hit it off and become like brothers or something. But let me tell you, the reality did not quite match up with my expectations. Michael showed up with an air of entitlement that rubbed me the wrong way from the start. He just marched into the house like he owned the place and barely spared me a glance as he made a beeline for the couch. At first, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe he was just shy or nervous about meeting me. But as the afternoon wore on, it became so clear that Michael was anything but humble. He complained about everything: the food, the TV, even the weather, like he was too good for any of it. And when Andrew tried to talk to him or introduce him, he barely looked up from his phone, as if he couldn't be bothered to acknowledge our existence. It was so awkward. Andrew was sorry for his behavior and Mom was trying to mellow it down. But the icing on the cake came when Andrew offered to take us out for ice cream. Now I was thrilled and I thought Michael would be too, but I was so wrong. He turned up his nose at the suggestion and whined about wanting something fancier instead. I was shaken. I get it, he was 10 at that time, but I was young too, and that was not normal. Here I was, hoping to bond with this kid, and he could not even muster up a tiny bit of gratitude. It was like a slap in the face and a harsh reminder that not everyone was as down-to-earth as Andrew. Then, as Michael finally left, I couldn't help but feel disappointed. I had hoped for a new friend, a new brother, but instead, all I got was a reality check. Now, months later, my mom just casually told me one day that she and Andrew were planning on getting married and how after marriage we would have to move in with Andrew and Michael in Chicago and how I have to be good to them. I remember just staring at her in disbelief. I had seen it coming. Andrew had been a constant in our lives for months now, and it was obvious how much they cared about each other. But still, the idea of them tying the knot and becoming a family was just a lot to wrap my head around. Because marrying Andrew meant more than just saying I do. It meant welcoming Michael into our lives full-time and becoming stepbrothers whether we liked it or not. I tried to be optimistic and tried to see it as a chance to build a new bond with Michael, but deep down, I was nervous about how things would go on after the marriage. Just like that, the wedding day came and my mother and Andrew got married in a very small gathering at a church. We had moved all our belongings and some of our furniture in Andrew's house before, and so we moved right away. Now life, I tell you, was not at all like I had known it. The dynamics had changed so much after my mother's marriage. Andrew was a great stepdad. He was the stepdad every child wished he had. The real problem was Michael. Now, I should be given an award for all the years that I have tolerated Michael. From the moment we moved in, it was like living with a tornado disguised as a kid. He had this knack for getting under my skin like he was born to push my buttons. Michael was cunning. I will give him that, and he had this way of twisting situations to make me look like the bad guy, while he played the innocent victim. He would break something and blame it on me, and then he used to flash his angelic smile whenever my mom was around, which left me to stew in frustration. Then there was this time when he borrowed my favorite hoodie without asking, which was not a big deal, except he spilled soda all over it and tried to blame it on a dog, and he did not even apologize for it. Instead, he acted all innocent and said that I should be more careful with my things. And then another time, when he saw me preparing a drink, he switched the sugar with salt in the sugar bowl, and I didn't realize until I took a big gulp of what I thought was sweet tea and nearly gagged on the salty mess. When I confronted him, he just laughed and said I must have grabbed the wrong bowl. And of course, my mom believed him over me, like always. But it was not just the mind games, it was his downright rude behavior. He would interrupt my conversations, borrow my things without asking, and make snide remarks every chance he got. And no matter how many times I tried to confront him about it, he always managed to wriggle out of it and made me feel like I was crazy or something. But the worst part was that he never got caught. My mom was blind to his antics. She would scold me for things I didn't do. Even when I tried to explain things to her, my mom would make me understand to always be good to everyone, blah blah blah. It was like living in a never-ending nightmare, one where I was always the villain and he was always the hero. And no matter how hard I tried to prove my innocence, it was like banging my head against a brick wall. And the weird journey of Michael and me was like a never-ending roller coaster ride from hell. As we grew up, I thought that things would get better. Wrong. If anything, they got worse. His antics went from annoying to downright cruel as the years passed, and it was like he was on a mission to make my life miserable. In high school, he would spread rumors about me and make up stories to embarrass me in front of my friends. And when I tried to defend myself, he would just smirk and say I was overreacting. It was like he had this hold over everyone, this power to manipulate the truth and turn it against me. But it was not just the mind games, it was the physical things too. He would accidentally trip me in the hallway, bumping into me so hard I would spill my lunch all over myself and things like that. Through it all, my stepdad Andrew was the only one who sympathized with me and understood every behavior of Michael. While everyone else seemed blind to his actions, Andrew saw through the whole thing and had my back through it all. He was the only one who understood what I was going through and who saw the toll Michael's cruelty was taking on me, and whenever I felt like I was drowning in frustration, Andrew was there to throw me a lifeline and to remind me that I was not alone in this. He did not just support me in words, he would also back it up with action. Whenever Michael pulled one of his stunts, Andrew would step in and set things straight. He would call out Michael on his behavior and refuse to let him get away with his lies and manipulation. But more than that, Andrew was there to listen. He never brushed off my concerns or told me that I was overreacting. Instead, he listened with an open heart and offered advice and encouragement when I needed it most. But in the end, Michael was Andrew's son and he did care for him very much. I remember Andrew telling me once that he was not always like this and that after Andrew and his ex-wife's divorce, he had turned into this ill-mannered and stubborn kid. But frankly speaking, I did not think that was a good enough reason for how he was treating me. I had gone through the same thing, but I was not at all like that, and I would never treat anyone how he used to treat me. Apart from that, it was really great having Andrew by my side. He knew all about my passion for gaming and how much I liked it, and he was like the ultimate cheerleader when it came to my passion for video games. My mom used to brush it off as just a phase or a waste of time, but Andrew was all in. Whenever a new game came out that I was dying to play, Andrew used to pre-order it. He would also stay up late with me, and we used to take turns at the controller, or he would cheer me on as I tackled a particularly tough boss battle. But it was not just about playing games together. He also saw the potential in my passion. He would listen patiently as I rambled on about game design ideas or strategies for beating a level, and used to encourage me and offer his feedback at every step. And when I talked about my dream of working in the gaming industry someday, he never scoffed or told me to be more realistic. Instead, he offered to help me research colleges with strong game development programs. But life had some other plans for me and even some heart-crushing moments, and the first one came in the form of my mother's death. The memory of that day is engraved into my mind like a scar. I was in my senior year of high school when it all went down. I was just chilling at home when the phone rang, and it was Andrew on the line. He told me that my mom had been in a car crash and that I should hurry soon. I was home alone and I swear I just froze. After I made sense of it all, I quickly raced to the hospital and prayed like crazy on the way that it was just some messed up mistake. But when I got there, my mom was lying in a hospital bed and her body was broken and bruised from the crash. The doctors tried to save her, but it was too late and she was gone. I couldn't do anything but stand there in silence as the world crumbled around me. I found Andrew in the waiting room and he was crying like anything. His face was pale and drawn with grief. He didn't say a word, but his wails and the pain in his eyes said it all. After Mom's death, Andrew became very silent and was very affected by it. Her death also ripped me apart, and we used to comfort each other a lot in these times while Michael was mostly absent. After her death, I also dropped the idea of owning a gaming company and started to think about a bit more rational career choice, as I thought that gaming was fit for only my passion. And even though I decided to double major in computer and data science at the University of Chicago, I didn't do it keeping the gaming industry in mind. Don't get me wrong, gaming had always been a huge part of my life and I used to spend countless hours immersed in virtual worlds and dreaming of a career in the gaming industry. However, I convinced myself that maybe gaming was just a hobby and not a viable career path, and that I needed to focus on something more practical. And even though there was a part of me that still longed for the excitement of gaming, but I pushed those feelings aside and convinced myself that I was making the right choice for my future. Andrew even questioned my change of plans and was very concerned as to why I was doing so, but in the end he agreed to it. That aside, moving out for college was like a breath of fresh air, because I finally had some peace and quiet, free from Michael's toxic presence. There were times when I missed home, but those moments were overshadowed by the relief of being away from Michael and his relentless torment. However, whenever we met at holidays or family gatherings, it was like stepping back into a nightmare. He used to waste no time in resuming his old habits, picking apart my every move and finding new ways to belittle me. It didn't matter how much I tried to avoid him or brush off his insults, he always found a way to get under my skin. It was honestly so exhausting to have to endure his constant insults and taunts. Then sometime later he headed off to college too, and then we used to meet even less than before. After college, I got a job in an insurance company, and after that, I bounced around from job to job throughout the years trying my hand at different roles in software and industries. But in the middle of all this, I had another tension on my head, and that was Andrew. He had caught a virus and the infection had spread throughout his lungs. It had started slowly, with some coughing and tiredness. But as time went on, it became impossible to ignore. As the years passed, I watched helplessly as Andrew's health began to deteriorate. We tried everything from different doctors to medications and treatments, but nothing seemed to make a difference. And then, one day we got the news we had been dreading, that Andrew's kidneys were failing. It was heartbreaking to see him like that. He had always been there for me, supporting me, encouraging me, and lifting me when I needed it most. And now, as he faced his own battle, I felt so lost and unsure of how to return the favor. In the end, Andrew's kidneys failed, and he faced the daunting prospect of dialysis and transplant surgery. I always tried to stand by his side, but Michael was totally absent from the picture. He rarely visited the hospital, no matter how much Andrew missed him. He was so ignorant about the whole thing that it pissed me off so much and made Andrew even sad. Then one day suddenly I received a call when I was in the office that Andrew's condition was getting worse. I ran to the hospital, but then in the blink of an eye he was gone. The days that followed were very painful and full of grief, as it felt like the world had come crashing down around me. I missed him, his laughter, his wisdom, and his unwavering support more than I could imagine. Michael was there on the day of the funeral, but to be honest, he looked pretty chill to me, which angered me so much, but I didn't talk to him at all that day, because his behavior was pissing me off. Then after some days, Andrew's lawyer contacted me to inform me about his will. We met at Andrew's house, which was empty now that he was gone. Michael was also there as he was invited by the lawyer. When we both were ready, he started telling us about the contents of the will. I couldn't believe what I was hearing as the lawyer read out Andrew's will. It was like a punch to the gut. According to the will, Michael was set to inherit everything: the house, the money, and even Andrew's beloved company. It specified that the company would be run by someone else, but Michael would be the true owner of it. All I was left with was a small box containing the video games Andrew and I used to play together, along with a cryptic letter that just said, "Call this number and ask for Mark," followed by a phone number. I couldn't make sense of it. Why would Andrew leave everything to Michael and nothing to me? And I started questioning myself if I had done something to disappoint him. On the other hand, Michael's reaction to the reading of Andrew's will was just cruel. As the lawyer disclosed that Michael inherited everything, while I was left with just a measly box of video games, Michael couldn't contain his glee. He smirked and laughed and mocked me for being left with nothing while he inherited the world. It was like a twisted game to him and a chance to fully enjoy his win over me one last time. Well, look who is still here. I was starting to think you would disappear into thin air. Michael, can we not do this right now? I hope you heard the will loud and clear. Quite the bombshell, huh? I remained silent. I mean, can you believe it? I get everything, and you get a bunch of old video games. Talk about a slap in the face. Dad left me those games for a reason, Michael. It is not just about the money or the possessions. Oh, please. Spare me the sentimental crap, Brian. Dad always saw potential in me, and now his will proves it. I'm just happy he died. The man was too old, and thanks to that dead fool, I can quit my job now. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. You may have inherited everything, but you'll never understand the bond Dad and I shared, and that's worth more to me than any amount of money. Whatever helps you sleep at night, big brother. Enjoy playing your silly games while I enjoy living the good life. What hurt the most was not just his gloating, but it was how he was so unaffected by his father's passing. While I struggled to come to terms with Andrew's death and suffered with feelings of grief and loss, Michael seemed downright thrilled at the thought of inheriting his wealth. He did not shed even a single tear and didn't offer a word to sympathize. Instead, he celebrated his newfound wealth with a sickening sense of satisfaction. It was like he saw Andrew's death as nothing more than an opportunity to line his pockets and expand his empire. As I watched him celebrate his good fortune, and a wave of anger washed over me. But then again, I reminded myself, that was just who Michael was, and that was my last meeting with him. After that, I never contacted him, and neither did he. Then, after months had passed, one day I finally mustered up the courage to call the number in the letter Andrew left me. I had no idea what to expect, but I figured it was worth a shot. A man named Mark, which was written on the letter, answered the phone, and as I explained who I was and why I was calling, he fell silent for a moment before speaking again. And what he said next rocked me to my core. Mark explained that Andrew had started a gaming company startup and he had left it all to me. I couldn't believe Mark's words at first because it was a lot to take in. But what really hit me was when Mark told me why Andrew had started the company in the first place. He said that Andrew knew how much I loved gaming and how I had always dreamed of starting my own company someday. So even though I was working as a software engineer in some other firm, he took matters into his own hands and created a legacy for me to carry on in his memory. I couldn't believe it and got all teary-eyed as Mark continued to speak. I had always been grateful for Andrew and I knew he was an amazing person, but all of this filled me with so much love and respect for him, again. And I decided to take over the company as soon as possible and build it to great heights. I also vowed to honor his memory every step of the way as a CEO. Then, as if the news about the gaming company was not enough, Mark dropped another bombshell on me that Andrew had left behind some hidden wealth in my name too. I couldn't believe it. It was like something out of a movie. Then, over the next 3 years, I poured my heart and soul into the gaming company that Andrew had left me. I worked day and night with passion to honor his memory and build something truly special, and it paid off. Big time. We launched game after game, each one better than the last, and slowly but surely, our little company started to make waves in the gaming world. But it wasn't until we released our latest game that things really took off. The game was an instant hit that captured the hearts and minds of gamers around the world and rocketed to the top of the charts. And suddenly, there I was, plastered all over the news and hailed as a gaming genius and a rising star in the industry. It was surreal, like living in a dream. One moment I was just a kid with a passion for gaming, and the next I was just side by side with industry titans on the covers of gaming magazines. Now it had been more than 3 years since I had last talked to Michael, and then one day out of nowhere my phone rang. I picked up to see the caller ID and it was Michael. I was very confused by this sudden phone call and remembered how I came to know a few months back that he had lost the company and was struggling to make ends meet. Nonetheless, I picked up the phone and he tried to tear me down with his insults and his mocking tone. But this time, I was not having it. "Hello, Brian, you little." "Michael, watch your tone." "Oh, don't you dare tell me what to do. I just saw you on the news flaunting your stupid gaming company like you were some kind of hotshot. Is that what this is about, Michael? Jealousy?" "Jealousy? Hey, you wish. I'm just shocked that you managed to turn nothing into something." "It's not nothing, Michael. Dad left me the gaming company in his will." "What? That is impossible. Believe it or not, it is the truth. And speaking of truth, I know all about your little downfall." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about how you lost the company Dad built, how you wasted everything he worked so hard for." "How? How did you find out?" "It doesn't matter how I found out, Michael. What matters is that you need to face reality. Dad believed in me, and he gave me this opportunity to honor his legacy. You think you are so special, don't you? Well, newsflash, Brian, you are nothing but a fraud. And you are nothing but a bitter, jealous man who can't handle the fact that his stepbrother succeeded where he failed. Goodbye, Michael." It felt so good. After years of enduring his bullying and his taunts, after years of feeling like I was somehow less worthy because of him, I finally had the upper hand. So yeah, maybe it was a petty move, but it was so nice. I had finally proved myself after all those long years and had taken my long-awaited revenge. I listened to the sound of his voice falter and crack under the weight of his own failures, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Because while he may have tried to tear me down, I was thriving in my career, in my life, and in my own sense of self-worth. And if hitting him with a little truth was the least I could do to pay him back for everything he put me through, then so be it. Needless to say, he never contacted me again.